Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Mike's Night. This is your host, Michael, and I am here today to give you another episode. Luckily, this loud truck from outside is gone, so I don't have to worry about them making obscene amounts of noise for the time being. So, I really want to start this off by firstly saying congratulations to Bad Bunny for a successful halftime show. And I guess the Seahawks, I suppose. But I did want to talk about briefly the power of having like a cultural figure or cultural influence that showcases your nation's pride, not even your nation's pride, just the pride of like your people, your culture, your society, whatever you want to call it. Essentially, during this halftime show, Bad Bunny he did actually a really good performance. His entire like set piece was based on the town that he grew up in Puerto Rico, and there were plenty of references that are going back to like his family, Puerto Rican like animals or Puerto Rican like customs, and he really put his best foot out there. Now there were certain things I did have to look up because well, I'm not Puerto Rican and I'm not fully privy to like all the cultural references that they may have, or and of course there's things about his family that of course I wouldn't really know unless he tells us. Like for instance, the outfit that he was wearing during his performance was a homage to I believe it was his late uncle. Um, when he was big into playing football himself, or if he showcased him as a child with like an old fashioned TV, and him giving a Grammy to this child, which was his past self, and his main message that was love is more powerful than hate, or it was something along those lines. But it's not word. I don't know if that's word for word, but essentially that is exactly what it is. Love is more powerful than hate. And and during last year's Super Bowl, we had, as the African American culture, had Kendrick Lamar performing during that halftime show. Now his halftime performance was more tailored towards his beef with Drake. Of course, it's not only that he was playing some of his best songs. I think those are some of his best songs. Um, but essentially he was paying homage by showcasing like certain kind of cars, certain kind of clothing. He was giving the spotlight to other creators. Like he would during that entire year, Kendrick was basically doing that. But during the halftime show, well, since he only has a set amount of time, he was kind of speed running it. But he did a very similar thing, showcasing like the pride of like the African American culture, specifically in the rap genre. So that we had that for African Americans, and then this year we had Bad Bunny for Puerto Ricans, and generally like the entirety like Hispanic culture in general. Because I do know many factions of Latin America or Hispanic culture really enjoyed Bad Bunny's performance. It gave many people were saying it gave them hope um the, during this time of their lives, specifically because of this current this current standing like presidency and what's going on right now. And if you don't know what's going on now, I can't literally like open your eyes, go read a book, go listen to the news and figure out what's going on, because if you don't know what's going on, I'm sorry, but that's just unacceptable as of right now, or like regardless of what you believe in. But there's one thing that I did want to point out that I've been hearing from I'll say less than educated individuals from from like certain sides of the world, or certain sides of the U.S. in this case. Now, I heard many people were saying that this is one of the worst halftime shows they ever seen. This is un-American. Um, is he even allowed to do this? Is this legal? And there, of course, are lies being told on Bad Bunny saying the dances that he was doing were pedophilic, or they were suggestive in nature when he was just dancing, or they were saying when he was some things that he was saying in Spanish were against the current administration, which not he didn't say anything about the administration during his performance. So there was just a lot of bigotry and hatred going towards his way, and most of it is just ignorant people just talking garbage. Of course, our president was also one of those people saying that's worst again one of the worst halftime shows he's ever seen. No, but I did want to make a little point here that you do realize that football itself isn't even an originally American sport. Football is from the British rugby specifically. That's where it originated from. And then there's also the case that Puerto Rico is technically part of the United States. While not a state technically, they became part of the U.S. in around the 1880s, and the Puerto Rican people became citizens during 1917. So yes, that technically that was a very American show. They're making American citizens. They're not technically a state. They're still Americans, so though that aspect is completely null and void in that sense. There's also another part of the show that I did want to bring up, which was Lady Gaga's part, where she came in and she wasn't trying to be like a main figure. She wasn't trying to take over the show. She didn't have like a super long performance during the show. She kind of was just a supporting asset to Bad Bunny's show in its entirety. And I did want to say that I do respect the fact that she was playing a supporting role, that she knew that that was her role. And she didn't try to make a big show that, oh yeah, I'm Lady Gaga and I'm here at front and center. No, she was a supporting part of the entirety of that show. And then also apparently the dress that she was wearing was she got it custom made by sorry, I have it searched up here so I can tell you correctly. Mr. Brutal and Salsa Dress. Did you know the person who made it was Raul Lopez, a Brooklyn-based brand in Luar, and essentially she got a custom made for that show, which I believe the type of dress that she was wearing is a custom in Puerto Rico. And I'm not certain about that. I was trying to look it up earlier so I can get you a correct saying from what it is. Let me see. So just designed by let's see. But essentially, yeah. So she wasn't trying to like take up the stage from Bad Bunny or anyone else during that entire performance. And I just had to pay respects to that. And also, she did dedicate some time to learning about what is an appropriate dress to wear during such a performance. So I couldn't really find it. I had to dig deeper into that. But if you want to know, I recommend go looking it up yourself. But also, I did want to, I did briefly want to say this because I was looking into this before even the halftime show began. But there are so many so quote unquote American things that never really originated in America. Got while it was brought here from immigrants, we did up not I'll say we did evolve them because of all the mingling cultures and everything coming through to America. So when immigrants bring like their culture and their society from other places, they see other cultures, other societies, and they intermingle, they connect, they some of them procreate and things, and that's how many different dishes, that's how many different dances, many different languages, that's how they all like get created, and they intermingle to become one and become something brand new. So, for instance, apple pie. For most of these, I'm going to say are like staples of the United States. Apple pie. Apples actually originate from what is modern day Kazakhstan, or yeah, it's modern in Kazakhstan, and apple pie itself is actually made from Dutch settlers. So apple pie is technically Dutch, not even American. We just appropriated it over time. Meatloaf. Meatloaf is a German and Italian dish that was brought in from immigrants from, of course, Italy and Germany. Fried chicken was introduced by Scottish immigrants, and of course, slaves helped create the process that we know of today for cooking it. So if you want to look at fried chicken, you can thank the slaves who made it into the modern phenomenon it is today. See, hot dogs, Jewish immigrants, hamburgers, German immigrants again. Actually, hamburgers I learned specifically was a struggle meal. It was like a hamburger steak. Essentially, yes, it was a struggle meal. Then when they brought it over, it was still a struggle meal, but it became literally the face of American cuisine now. So technically, it is a German invention. Same things with like sausage, pretzels, and stuff like that. Sushi and Chinese restaurants. Even though everyone knows that sushi was made by, actually, was it made by Japanese? I think it was made by the Japanese, but I do want to double check that. But essentially, with all like the Chinese restaurants we have and all the variations of Chinese restaurants we have, yeah, they clearly are from Chinese and, well, Asian immigrants in general, not even just Chinese, because just Thai, Vietnamese. Um, what was that one I learned about not too long ago? Ooh, that one escapes me. But all the different like Asian immigrants that come over, they have multiple different types of cuisine, and there's restaurants dedicated to that across the United States. So I think it is very ignorant to say that, yeah, almost everything that we classify as American was brought over by other cultures. So when people say, "Oh, this isn't American, this isn't," they're singing this in Spanish. Like, I feel like that's just ignorant. Honestly, that's just causing uproar for no reason. And there was another thing that I was thinking about, that people would spend thousands upon thousands of dollars to go to a Korean boy band. They'll be perfectly fine with them not singing a lick of English. The people who will go to completely different countries, they don't. Many people, while yes, in the tourist areas they speak English, there's other places that they don't speak English, and they're perfectly fine with doing that. But for some reason, when Bad Bunny's doing this show, it's an issue. Yeah, and then now it's an issue. Then you go to a Mexican restaurant directly after that, and still complain that, oh, that wasn't American. That's so ignorant. I want to make a brief update in terms of myself before going forward. I was speaking to a friend, and, again, looking for a job. Job market still sucks. Nothing new there. But I was speaking to a friend, and he was talking about going back to school for a different like, degree path. I know a couple of my other friends are doing something similar, where one is going for a medical degree. I don't quite remember off the top of my head, but they're going for like radiology, I believe. Uh, but my friend I was talking to, he wants to go back for computer science, which me and him, we had to sit down. We looked at what intern computer science majors, I think like electrical engineers and this computer engineers. It was an engineering job, regardless of what it was. But we had to sit down, we had to look at it, and an intern, and I cannot stress this enough, an intern is making almost $100,000 out the gate. And that's just an intern. It was a range from like 60,000 to, again, over $100,000 as an intern. Then actual like starter jobs were in like a similar boat, where they're 80,000 to 100,000, 80,000 to 90,000. It doesn't really matter. I think that's insane. I knew engineers were a highly sought after position, but I did not realize it was like that. And then and that also explains why on campus the engineering building is by far the most modern building, the most upkept building. Like, everyone that I see going in and out of that building, there's people out coming out of the highest end motorcycles, highest end cars. They're just driving around campus with them. I was like, where are y'all coming from? Like, what? How do you have this kind of money? Not realizing, if they were doing an internship, oh, they definitely have that kind of money. And while being in school, that would have been a godsend, if that amount. That means for some of them, they could have just done an internship for a year. Not They could have taken a break from school, just did an internship for that year, and then came back, and they would have been set. They wouldn't have to worry about anything, and except for like maybe like emergencies. But even then, that they are basically set for life from the moment they did an internship. And I just think that was wild. So while I was looking at, and then we took a look at our degree, which is graphic design, because we did the same program, and that was honestly depressing, because even in like major cities around us, there was no jobs. A lot of jobs that were on the site were, honestly, they were scams. They're scams, or they weren't real. And then, yeah, just looking at it, we also don't get paid all that much. It's kind of like, for him, it's basically like working a manager position that he was already in. He's a manager of the store that we were at. But essentially, he was working a manager position that he's already in, so he actually wasn't making all that much more, uh, or even he might have even been making less in some cases. Looking at that, it's like, wow, it's like, there's not many jobs, and B, they're not paying that much. And even if you get a contract job, it's like, it's not even a guarantee that we'll get that. And even then, that might not even be the best solution. If I were keep pursuing this field, unfortunately, what it's looking like is, this is very well just me, like a side gig kind of job, or a side gig kind of career. I may need to go back to school myself, and I might need to figure out what exactly, what sets me up for the future. Like, I'm thinking about going back to a technical, get a trade skill. just so I can like start earning some earning some income. Now, what I want to do, don't know yet. I need to sit down and really like delve into that and like really figure it out because as of right now, this isn't working. This is leading nowhere now. Right now, at the moment, I'm feeling like this degree I have is practically useless, and I don't want to hear no you did all that time. Listen, I was in school for almost 7 years. I was in there for 6 years because I started in 2019, but I've been in school for over 6 years. I went to a different school. I went for a different degree. I learned that I didn't really like it. And then finding a job in that field is not only hyper specific, but it will be extremely difficult, especially as a African American man, because I think looking at the statistic, it was marine biology. Looking at this, looking at the statistic, it was like there's only like what at the time only like 8% of marine biologists are African American, and then it was even less when you're counting that there are Black African Americans. So I decided, you know what, I need to find a job that actually is common and then would actually have some like staying power. At the time, yeah, not marine biology, graphic design did have that. I went for like a year that was undecided, but after like talking to someone, I said, "Yo, yeah, the graphic design seems like a good idea. That might be something I want to do." And after like doing it, yeah, I had a lot of fun with it. It was super cool. Really enjoyed it. But as time went on, and then advances in technology kept popping up, whether that be AI or like different companies decided, no, we don't really need this anymore. We want to do just other ways to do it, much easier ways to do it. Unfortunately, my job has kind of been put to the wayside, and for many people that I do know, that is simply the case where many of them just can't find jobs anymore. And it's becoming increasingly difficult as time goes on to find a job, and it's kind of like morally kind of like putting me in a bad spot, putting me in a bad position. So instead of sitting here wasting time doing absolutely jack squat, like I could still be practicing. Excuse me, I still could be like making stuff for myself, making stuff that I could be selling and doing things like that. That's still not in the long run not going to do anything in my humble opinion, unless like even if I'm like putting my name out there and I eventually would be promoting myself in that aspect. I do think there are better ways. I do think there are other ways that I could be making more of a impact on my future, and right now I don't think this is the way to do it. So until I figured that out, I mean, that's going to be on the back burner in terms of like what I'm going to be saying on like the podcast going forward. That's going to be more of a personal journey, and I need to add something I need to figure out on my own. But that's just a quick update of what I've been going through, what I've been thinking about. So going forward, we're going back into nerdy territory. So I've been playing a game. This game is called Arc Raiders. For some of you who know me, they played this game with me before. I This game is a classification of extraction, technically a PvE shooter, where you as a raider, that's what your character is, a raider, are going across a ruined wasteland to find resources to take back to your home base. When you take resources back from the raids that you do, you can craft stuff with them, you can do missions with them, you can prepare for the next excursion. Now, I did say it's technically a PvE shooter only because it has PvP elements in there as an option. And just to clarify, PvE is an acronym for player versus environment, while PvP is player versus player. In this game, the world has been absolutely overrun by environmental enemies called Ark. The Ark are a robotic faction that cover the maps with multiple different classes. All the Ark are generally relentless, and I mean that. When they spot you, and they can be escapes, but some of them are easier to escape than others. Each of them have their own strengths and their own weaknesses. For instance, wasps and hornets. Wasps and hornets are by far the most common of the aerial types of arcs that you run into in the overworld. But both are drone enemies, with wasps having no armor, and they have more of they have light weaponry. They pepper spray you with like light ammo. No, I guess you want like an example would be like .38 in terms of like bullet size, or like a 9mm. But essentially, they're shooting you with like light ammo. They don't really have much armor. They can be taken out fairly easily by most weapons, unless you have a Rattler. Terrible weapon. We'll get into that in a minute. Hornets are a strict upgrade of what Wasps are. They are considered more dangerous with heavier armor, and they shoot a sort of like a taser at you. This taser, well, you have a type of shield which protects you from incoming damage. It doesn't protect you from all damage, but it protects you from most incoming damage. When these Hornets they shoot you, they specifically target your shield. Now they do damage you, yes, but they target your shield, they stun you, and while trying to shoot them, but the Hornet has much more armor, so they're much more difficult to take out. And like I said, they are very relentless. Unless you can duck away into a building and break line of sight, they will chase you down to the ends of the earth. For both shooting out their turbines, they are a drone style enemy. Shooting out their turbines is by far the easiest way to deal with them, and it throws off their flying whenever you break one of the turrets off. So like if you break one in the back, they have to readjust themselves, and sometimes they can't readjust themselves in time, and they will run into a wall, run into the ground, and just blow up after that. Now, it's not guarantees. They can adjust themselves if they have enough airspace, and they will eventually. So you need to either do enough damage to just outright destroy them, or you can break two of the back turrets off, black turbine, excuse me, two of the back turbines off, and they'll just go doing like a loop in the air and crash into the ground. So again, that's the easiest way to deal with them. Again, they're by far the most common of the flying card. And alone, they really aren't like a threat. They're really just annoying. Like I said, Hornets are more dangerous, but they still aren't like a super bad threat, especially when you're in a group with other people. But when they are in a group with Hornets and Wasps together, or just straight Wasps or straight Hornets, they are actually a feasible threat. Because what they tend to do, because the Ark are actually pretty intelligent, they have pretty good AI. Well, they will rotate around you, so they'll go into like a formation. For instance, like one Hornet will be in front of you, the other Hornet will flank from the back and cut off any like points of exit. And the Wasps do this too. And again, when one of them is pepper spraying you, the others are pepper spraying you. So that turns into an actual like torrent of bullets coming from multiple different directions, which can be very difficult to deal with, especially when you have no cover to duck away into, or someone you can just drop down and like lose line of sight again. But when they're swarming you, they are by far the most dangerous when they have other types of more threatening arc with them. Now, there is a ground equivalent of these two, though they are called pops and incinerators. Same story, different methods basically, where they are really by far the most dangerous in groups, but both are orbs. Both are types of orbs, so they're literally just balls running at you. They roll around indoors areas almost always strictly. There are happened cases when they may pop up outside. That usually is like a mistake. They really don't spawn outside. They only spawn indoors. Pops are by far the most annoying out of all four, in my opinion. They are strict trash, terrible, worthless little creatures. But essentially what they are, as their name implies, they're kind of like suicide bombers, where if they see you, they will make a loud noise, charge directly at you. Sometimes they'll jump at you and blow up immediately. Some other times they'll make a sound and a pop after a short amount of time. With my luck, unfortunately, my luck is always terrible. It's always when I'm looting or preoccupied. If I'm finding someone, or if I'm in a looting menu, that's when they always find me. That's when they always spawn. And it takes a second for you to get out the menu, stand up, run away, find cover, climb something, or pull out your weapon to deal with them. The pops have no armor, literally no armor whatsoever. It takes 2 shots, almost any weapon, and they will blow up. They'll be dealt with. Yet, when they always want to catch you when you're doing something, and so it makes it much more difficult to deal with them. Or they spawn in the most inopportune areas known to man. You're running away from something else. You turn the corner. You didn't hear a single one of them. You didn't see a single one. You've dealt with hundreds already. And the moment you turn this corner, there's one directly at your feet, and they will blow up immediately. So they're by far the most annoying out of all 4 of the common archetypes. But again, they also like to spawn in groups. They spawn only indoors, so they're not like egregious at all times. But they again they're just simply annoying. The next type, which is the same kind with their types of ground arc, is the incinerators. I lost my place. Where are you? But the incinerators, they're much more armored. They generally they roll around with like an armor protection over the top and can only be destroyed with heavy weaponry when it comes to that armor on the outside. Or when they are coming to attack you, they open up their hoods, which shows their very fragile insides. When they open up the hoods, that's how they burn you. That's when they start attacking you. Destroying them, it also causes like a napalm effect, which can trap you if you're not careful. That the napalm effect goes over a pretty wide area. So if you're in like a one-way room and you pop one on the inside, that entire room may very well be on fire. Or if you pop in a doorway while you're trapped in the room, hopefully you're not fighting anything else or other players, because if that napalm is there, you're stuck in there while they can shoot you from outside, or at the very least they'll be trapped outside until that fire goes away. It doesn't last for long. So that's like what 3 seconds, and then it goes away. So it's not like super egregious, but at the same time, it can be very inopportune at multiple different moments. Again, they're just more annoying and just extremely common, same as the other two, the Hornets and the Wasp. But again, they are by far the most dangerous when they're with other art. Those are again, all of them are very fairly easy to deal with. The hardest one being the Hornet out of all four, but they do not compare, not even in the slightest, to the real heavy hitters. Rocketeers, for example, are a giant version of the Wasps and Hornets, and as the name implies, they fire explosive ordnance. When they see you, they are very loud, and even though they are slower than Hornets and Wasps, they are freakishly fast for their size. They are heavily armored. They can only be damaged by heavy weaponry, at least as far as I'm aware. You may be able to do damage with medium weaponry, but it's probably not worth it. You might as well run away if you have medium weapons. And in light weapons, yeah, just run. You're if you're in open space, I'm sorry, you just go ahead and die, because call it quits right then and there. But yes, you really need they really need like heavy rounds to really take them down, and you borderline need a team to take them down. You can do it by yourself. There are certain weapons that you can use that do deal with them fairly consistently and fairly easily. Um, for instance, there are grenades that can heavily damage them called wolf packs. Wolf packs are a kind of homing grenade that really only targets arc. They're really effective at dealing with all types of arc, especially Rocketeers. I think two of them will take down the Rocketeer easily, while almost an entire clip from a heavy weapon is needed to even deal significant damage to it. So Wolfpacks are almost a necessity if you want to fight a Rocketeer. You don't really need it. Like, you can take one down just shooting it. There are weak points that you can take out. For instance, the turbines. Similar story to the Hornets and the Wasps. However, their turbines are armored, so you do need to have a bit good aim. Not with that, of course, they're in the air, but also you need to be very consistent and communicating with your team about which turbine you're targeting, so you're not wasting ammo, wasting time, trying to do one at a time. Which, again, they're heavily armored and have a lot of health, so you're not just taking them down that easily. There is another weak point towards like the front of it. There's this thing called people call it an eyebrow, which is like a little like plate that rests on top of his eye around like his visual point. You can't shoot that with a heavy round, and then it opens up a really weak point of the head, which then you can use like a medium weapon and take it down very easily. Medium weapon is kind of like a pistol. It's called a Venator. It takes like a handful of shots once that plate is gone to take down the Rocketeer. But again, as a flying enemy that is spinning around you while in the air, and you're trying to shoot a actually fairly small part of this body to do significant damage. And if you hit to the sides, you're hitting heavily armored plating. So it's not the easiest thing in the world, and they are, again, relentless and by far one of the more dangerous enemies in the game. 2 shots from that thing will take you down. 2 to 3, depending on what kind of shield you have, it will take you down without much fanfare. They will just take you out. They do have very good loot. So Eventually, you do want to take them on just because the kind of gear that they provide is necessary for you to upgrade certain things back at home base. So you do need to fight them at some point during your career in Arc Raiders. But generally, if you don't need anything from them, you don't need to fight them. Avoid them at all costs. You do not want to signal their attention whatsoever. If you can, stay out of their line of sight by all means necessary. There are certain situations where you do want to call one towards you. For instance, if you're fighting a team and they're just being annoying, you can just summon one by shooting it in the sky. They'll come directly at you, and the moment it sees anyone, oh yeah, everyone's close. And it will be a good way to distract an enemy team and for you to run away if it doesn't spot you, of course. Or it's a good way for them to say, okay, this may not be worth it. We need to get away from here. That'll be a good opportunity for you to run away. So generally, Rocketeers are, they're extremely imposing and they are extremely effective at dealing with Raiders. And just because there are a lot of darn arcs, I'm going to do like a rapid fire. And just say what some of these are and kind of what they do. Number one, we're going to start with Bastions. Bastions are basically walking artillery. Leapers are ground-based enemies that will LeBron across an entire map to hit you if you catch their attention. X, which are like spider-like versions of leapers, they are very small. They'll lunge at you and they'll attach themselves and they'll do decent damage if you let them stay on you for too long, or if there are a lot of them. Generally, they're only like 2 or 3 at a time, and they're very easy to deal with. You can hit melee it, and they'll die immediately. Well, they're not like super dangerous. They can be annoying, especially fighting something. So deal with them as you see fit. Snitches are flying probes that will scan large areas for raiders, and when they spot one of you, they'll make a alerting noise, which is very loud again. And when alert everything nearby you to your position and current area, because they also basically have a floodlight hitting you directly on your forehead. So if there's raiders near you, they will see it, they will hear it. There's arc near you, they will see it, they will hear it, and they will summon enemies to come fight you as well. So take them out as quickly as possible, unless you want them to spawn stuff on you, which they will. So it's good to like farm certain materials that you need. Now they really only spawn like hornets and wasps, so it's nothing like super egregious, but still, if they're good for if you want to farm those like materials, or if you're like fighting someone and they spawn, they alert your enemy's position. And one of the biggest ones, called the matriarch or the queen, depending on which one you want to call, is a gigantic arc which has multiple weapons to do with you, whether that be artillery, whether that be the stomping on you, whether that be a type of AoE like blast. They have a lot of different weaponry that they can spawn to do with you. They are actually fairly rare. They don't spawn all that often, and they generally spawn with a type of event that's going on. To take on a queen, you do need to have basically a large group with you, because you can't take it on by yourself, but you would need a lot of weaponry. There are weak spots to hit it on, but unfortunately, it's still a very daunting task. So it is recommended that you do fight with other raiders, to take it on. And it's also like a kind of like a gamble as well. So once you take it on, most of the time raiders are very communicative. So when you're taking one on, they'll agree to, okay, we're going to take this on. You'll get your side of loot. We'll get our side of loot. We'll dip. We won't fight each other. But there are times where raiders do get greedy. So you do have to be on your toes, even when you win that battle. It's not exactly a guarantee that they'll be friendly with you. So just be careful with that. There are a few more, like some turrets and stuff like that, but the one I really want to cover is by far the most oppressive, outright dangerous arc, in my opinion, apart from the Rocketeer. Shredders are like a flying thruster in terms of like what they look like. They're a flying thruster. If you know Star Wars, like the little pro things that they had on Hoth, they say, I mean, whatever they say. And they currently only spawn on one map. And thank the Lord, at this point, it only spawns there. These are extremely quick and are basically a large shrapnel grenade. Whenever they spot a raider, they will chase them down to the ends of the earth. and fire shrapnel at you from all sides of it. So you can't really like duck behind it because it would be shooting shrapnel from there as well, and they do a ton of damage. And they're really like it's like a shotgun as well, which like well I said grenade, so that they count as well. But they're really close range. But if you get caught in a really bad position, you're cooked, absolutely fried. And the only way to really deal with them is by shooting at their thruster at the very bottom. And they have a lot of health, so you're not going to be able to kill it at one go, probably. They do have a decent, like I said, they do have a decent amount of health, and you kind of have to play a really dangerous game of like cat and mouse to really kill it. So like a good way to deal with them is find a pretty large object you could duck behind, so you will get it to initiate a shooting sequence. You will duck behind this large object, wait for it to shoot, then coming out the cover, shoot it at the very bottom, and play that game of cat and mouse. But if it hits you a single time, your entire shield is basically gone. Your health is basically at half already, and pray, no other raider is aggressive towards you because that thing is a death sentence. Or even more, pray that there isn't more than one in the same area because they do travel in groups of 2 to 3. And if one sees you and you get the attention of another, you best have somewhere you can climb up atop of very high, or you can jump down and get really low, get away from it as fast as you possibly can because they will kill you. They will chase you down. They can be escaped. Well, all the arc can, but this one specifically can be escaped by breaking line of sight, which fortunately on the map that they do spawn on, there are a lot of corridors, doorways, and like places we can break line of sight fairly easily. Again, you can break line of sight by getting somewhere that's really unreachable for them. So they can't really climb, though they do have a thruster. They can't really fly like up towards you. They can only really like stay on like ground level and like chase you down that way. I think they are considered a flying enemy, so they wouldn't be considered ground. So if there's missions for that, unfortunately, those won't work for you. For like the flying arc, the same can be said as long as you can get somewhere that can break a line of sight. Lake will stop eventually. Now there are places where if there's like holes in the roof, like you go into a building, there's holes in the roof or holes in the side, they actually will go into buildings to look for you. So just be aware that Rocketeers are gigantic. There are places where they can't fly into if you're not being careful. So just be aware of your surroundings, and just if you can find places underground specifically, that's probably the best place to break line of sight for most arc, except for like the pops and incinerators, because they're going to be inside anyway. Now, I do briefly want to talk about the next major enemy of the game, Raiders themselves. Now, Ark is definitely the most common enemy you're going to be fighting, and of course, that's the name of the game. You want to be fighting Ark. That's your main enemy throughout the entirety of the game. I mean, that's why it's called Ark Raiders. But the other people that you're going to be kind of fighting are going to be Raiders themselves. Now, again, the premise of the game is you're supposed to be working together and communicate with each other as a team to fight the Ark. But as you know, per usual, human greed and the ability to get more goop will always be a threat. So now, this game is honestly an observational test, a psychological test, if you will. Now I will speak about this in a little bit, but many Raiders will respect when people say they're friendly or don't shoot, which is a voice line in the game. But there are a subset of rats, as we call them, that will use that as a trap to lure people in and kill them for their gear. It's honestly a gamble at times when like you want if they're in that area with Raiders, whether they will kill you or they will be friendly and just ignore you. Will they shoot first? Are they friendly? Will they attempt to talk with you and just exchange information? Will they let you leave, or you get backstabbed and you try to leave? Is it really? It's really a risk. It's a really risky position, especially if you have goop. I did mention before actually, but there is actually a funny term in this game, which loot is actually called goop. But that's just in-game talk. I just think it's funny. It's a funny word to say, goop. But there are items in this game that fake your death signal. So like when you're dying, you lose all your health. you shoot up a really bright flare into the sky. If you're indoors, it hits the roof and bounces off onto the ground. So if you're inside of a building, that's kind of a way to circumvent that. I mean, you don't really get to choose where you die, but essentially, that's a way to circumvent that. If you're inside of a building, your flare won't go up and alert everyone in the area. Oh, this person died right over here. Let me go over there. But there are items called raider flares, which shoot that flare, the same exact kind of flare that you die with, into the sky. So many raiders will use that as a way to trick other raiders to come to the area if they're greedy or they think they can save someone, which there is a way to save people. Um, and they'll trap them and just ambush them using that exact same flare. So this game is really a gamble in terms of how and who exactly you can trust at any given point. Now, raider fights aren't as common in solos or even duos. Duos can be duos are often preventable with a good bit of diplomacy, but in trios, because this game only goes up to trios, there's no like quad. You better be on your toes in trios. Everyone is basically an enemy in trios. It's rare to find friendlies in trio lobbies. There's also a term for especially goop hungry or aggressive players we call rats. I did say it earlier, but rats is actually a term in this game. Rats are players that camp around areas that are extraction points for other players in the raid. Now, these extraction points can range from a couple different things. So one of them is an elevator that you call, makes a lot of noise. It has two terminals on the inside. Once you get in, the moment that you or anyone else, any other raider jumps into that elevator and the button is pressed, you all go down. That's how you extract safely with all the gear that you have. There's another called a tram station. The tram station is a train, of course. Again, makes a lot of noise. It's depending on the map, it is a risky area to go to, especially with other raiders. So simply because there's a lot of points of entry and there's a lot of corners. So if they feel especially greedy or they want to fight, you do have to be careful about that. If you're down there, there's a lot of different positions that you can take. You can set up like mines and stuff like that. But in some areas, it's so oppressively dark. Man, the lighting in this game. When I say oppressive darkness, if you turn off whatever screen that you're looking at right now, and you look at the screen, that is exactly how dark this game can be sometimes. And it's on certain maps, it is terrible. But with that being said, there's other like escape routes you can take. There's like fans that you can turn off. You can go down, and that's how you escape back to the underground. There is a raider hatch. A raider hatch, you need a key that you need to come into the raid with in order to activate and jump down. It's by far the fastest and safest method of escaping the surface. So, but people still, these rats are people who hang around these areas and they will wait for people to come there so they can kill them and take their loot, or sometimes just kill them. Unfortunately, I have my experiences where someone tried to fight me, even though I called the tram station, not tram, I called the elevator already. It was already closing up. They couldn't get any loot. Even if they killed me and started looting me, they wouldn't have gotten anything from me at all. But it's after they downed me, which you can call it as if you're crawling on the ground. They just proceeded to kill me. I didn't get any loot. They didn't get any loot. So it was just a waste of time. But there are really aggressive players like that, and unfortunately, those are what we call the rats of the game. Most rats, ratting is by far the most hated play style of most raiders. And when one person is caught ratting, most reasonable players will attack them on site. Even if they're not like people you've spoken to during the raid, even if they're people that you're recently like they ran into, like you decided, okay, we won't fight each other. It's most raiders, they see a rat, they will kill that rat immediately. And I did mention that you can be revived if you are down. So there are, if they're not on your team, there is a item called a, ooh, it's basically a stem. I don't know why I forgot the name of it, but essentially it's a stem. So if an enemy raider hits you with this stem, they can bring you back. So you can bring you back on your feet. In this game, yeah, again, most friendly raiders will do that, especially if you use decent diplomacy and say, no, I wasn't trying to attack you, or I was trying to do this mission. I was just trying to get to the area to do this mission or whatever. No, I honestly was running away from because this person attacked me. Then there are some raiders who will bring you back to life and they'll help you out. But I wouldn't say bank on that. A lot of raiders, especially any more aggressive lobbies, will absolutely just kill you on sight. That they will not care. They will not talk to you. But essentially, when it comes to rats, yeah, most people hate them. Now, that's where that is a very interesting concept to me, since the game is intended to be played cooperatively and not as a typical PvP game. There are friendly raiders. Like there's actually, in the developers of the game, they made two kinds of servers. So there's a server where there are friendlies. There are people who like to talk. They don't really like to fight other players. They are friendly. They're friendly to each other. They rarely fight each other. These servers are full lobby conversations. Like if there's a congregation of people, they're just yapping about, oh yeah, this map is kind of dog water. We don't really like it. There's an orc over there that was giving me some trouble. I kind of want to farm it. Oh yeah, we can go as a group. We can do this together. There's lobbies of servers just like that, and people just goofing around and just having fun. Well, the more aggressive players were quote unquote punished by being put into servers which have other aggressive players. And honestly, that's kind of just fine for them. That's kind of what they want anyway. That's that for most extraction shooters. That's usually what you do. That's kind of how people have fun. Because raiders definitely get the most interesting play styles most of the time because of the kinds of weapons that you have, the kinds of gear that you may bring into the raid, the types of tactics that you may do that may catch someone by surprise. They've never seen it before. So honestly, fighting other raiders is actually pretty fun. That's in all honesty, is probably the most fun you have in this game, especially when you have the ability to talk with them. And if you have your old COD heads, your Halo heads, oh yeah, they love to talk their trash. Oh, some of it is honestly really funny. And it is by far the most engaging experience, in my opinion. But at the same time, there is definitely the whole punishment aspect. It makes it much harder for anyone who's just trying to do a mission, just trying to get one specific piece of loot, even if it's not a rare piece of loot, and they're not there for a fight. They can still get jumped. They will still be attacked, and even if you try to talk your way out of it, most of them will just kill you and send you back to your lobby with no loot whatsoever. You lose everything that you possibly had. And again, some players are just looking. They're just looking to fight. They don't care about looking for loot. They don't care about trying to speak with you. They just want to fight. And generally, the community in the hell servers, as I like to call them, call it levels of toxic. I will say one experience I had. Was with a group of. I was with my squad, as I would say, my troop, and I was with. And we were in a map called Berry City, and I actively didn't hear. Well, I was fighting, and a team kind of attacked me first. I was trying to hold my ground, and I actively couldn't hear what they were saying. I got a clip of it later from a friend who was streaming the game. But an enemy, like I said, they attacked me first, and they started calling me slurs. Again, I didn't hear what they were saying because I was a hard focus on dealing with them, which of course I did deal with them, but and B, I honestly just couldn't hear what they were saying. But yeah, they're calling me slurs. They call me they're shouting like the hard ER style slurs. My group, again, we eviscerated them, but there are players like that in the game. Well, I will say it's fairly rare. It is an occurrence that I did have to deal with during some of my raids in this game. Now, I have gone over the raiders, but I did briefly want to go over like the maps in the games itself, because there are a handful of maps in these games. For instance, they have Battleground, Spaceport, Stella Montes, Buried City, and Blue Gate. There are some subsects of these maps. Like for instance, there's like a training ground you go down to test weapons, and like learn tactics that you want to use. But generally, those are the 5 main maps of the game, with some like variations between them. Dam is generally seen as a starter raid area with plenty of cover and moderate map size. And the map size generally is, you can run across it within 3 to 5 minutes. It's not that big compared to some others, but loot on that map is fairly good with medical, organic, and industrial loot or goop. Each map has different loot types, I should say. So, like I said, with Dam, would specialize in things like organic stuff. So like mosses, your mushrooms, your like plant stuff you need for like upgrading things. Um, and then while like something like Spaceport would have more technical and industrial loot. Speaking of Spaceport, that map is harder due to the fact that it's much more open. It is, I think, by far one of, if not the largest maps in the entire game. Some of my troop doesn't like that map because of its size and lack of cover over long distances. Loot there is generally negligible, like and arc are very present there. So when I say negligible, it's not like a ton of good loot you can get. Now again, it's very specific. So if you want a specific kinds of loot, like if you want more technical, like tech type loot, you would go to Spaceport. If you want more industrial loot, there's a lot of like industrial areas around Spaceport, so you would go there for that kind of stuff. But generally, you're not finding it's just a really wide map, and the cover is not too present. So if you need to escape from arc, very hard. If you need to escape from other players, very hard because most of the time they can just see where you're going. You can't really use a lot of tactics to escape from them. So it's a very difficult map to like really get stuff done on. Especially when you're trying to run across it. It takes 5 to maybe even 7 minutes to run across the entire thing. Especially if you're trying to do it safely, it takes a long time to get across that map. So it's not really the best map for really any reason. There's other maps that you can get that kind of loot from, and again, it's difficult to navigate. Blue Gate is similar in that aspect of being very open and lacking for cover in large areas. Now, Blue Gate is a much smaller map than Spaceport, and it specializes in rare organic loot. So there's things you can only get on Blue Gate. For instance, olives. Olives are needed to upgrade a certain farming method. But unfortunately, like I said, because there's no real cover and it is a small map, you're likely going to have to fight tooth and nail against other players and Arc to get out of there, or even just loot anything. Since the area is super open, and when one faction sees you, you best believe the other faction sees you and hears you. So there will almost always be fighting on a map with people converging on the sound of fighting or the sight of fighting. So I'm just saying, if you're going to be there, just keep be on your P's and Q's. There's not many places that you can't escape to, and unfortunately, most players on there know that map has some rare loot on it, so they will be fighting. Fairy City is one of the better maps. Say that and Dam are the two best maps in the game. Fairy City is one of the better maps due to its good cover, excellent map size, good goop, and generally fighting there is actually pretty fun in my opinion, because there's a lot of places where you can get high ground. There's a lot of covers options. The map is, I won't say confusing. It's fairly straightforward. It's honestly it's just a fun map to traverse and a fun map to fight on. It's just a really good map. Very say I say the extraction points. This is the one caveat to that map. That's the one point where it's like it can be hit or miss. Is the extraction points near military? Do you need near military grade tactics to traverse the extraction point, or you need grade A diplomacy? Like you're Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're the negotiator. Like the way you had to traverse, that you need to get in and get out of Berry City can be a challenge in of itself. One of the extraction points, which is a tram station, gives the advantage to attackers by giving them both high ground and an easy escape route. Once you're down in that once you're down in that extraction area, the only way to get out of that extraction area is by using a rope, which you can shoot on the rope, but the rope makes a lot of noise, and B, you're only going up and down. So once you're going up, you don't have a lot of escape routes while on this rope. So it's very difficult to get out of that area. So if you're fighting there, you're fighting an uphill battle. Literally, you're fighting an uphill battle. The second, one of the other escape routes, I forgot the word. One of the other extraction points is another tram station. This one you actually utilizing like staircasing, where you can when you're able to go down, you're able to on tram station, and there are two distinct corners. There's two entrances. There's also two distinct corners of that tram station. In that tram station, it is unbelievably dark down there. When I say you turn off whatever thing you're like watching something on, you look at that screen. That is how dark those corners are. If you need to utilize your flashlight, you need to utilize some like flares. You need to utilize glow sticks. Anything that creates light is going to be your best friend down there. Yeah, there are players who hide in those corners and wait for people to call that tram station, and they will ambush them from the corners when you cannot see them whatsoever. Is really good defensively because again, you put mines at the doorways, so people try to rush you down there, they will get blasted by a mine. Or if you can hide behind, there's also cover down there. There's decent cover actually. So even though there's two ways to come out, if you're with a team, you can cover both entrances. So one goes to the far left, one goes to the far right, one can stay in the middle. So if one needs help, you can just turn around to whichever one needs to help. And generally, it's a very good defensive position. In ways, those like the two main ways to extract. There's other ways, of course, but those are going to be the two main ways to extract on Bury City. But again, one of the better maps in the game. And last, and definitely not least, is what I call the veteran map, Stella Montes. Now, I talked about it a little bit before, but Stella Montes is by far, the most aggressive and dangerous map in this game. It doesn't matter if you're solo, it does not matter if you're in trios, it doesn't matter if you're in duos. The moment you step foot on that map, everyone is your enemy. Does that mean that you can't talk with them? No, does not mean you cannot talk with them. But I would say consider everyone on that map an absolute op. You do not negotiate on that map. You need either, if you are on that map, you are either running away or you are fighting. There is no in between on that map. Terrible extraction points. You need to hide. You need to hide less unless you want to be hunted down. There are tight corridors and confusing traversal. Really good group in that map. There's some of the best group in the game you're ever going to find is going to be on Stella Montes, but is by far the most aggressive place in the entire game that you're ever going to be. So when I say you need to hide, like if you're in extraction, you hide. You find high ground. You find a small corner. You find a place that's dark. You find somewhere that you cannot be seen because every raider on that map will hunt you down. Every raider, every arc on that map will hunt you down. This is what I was talking about before. This is the one map, the single map that has shredders on it. I'm not talking about shredders before. And this is the only map that they spawn on. The shredders are the primo arc of this map. They currently only spawn on this map, but there are plans in the future that they will put these menaces on other maps and bless all other rated souls. But they do have plans to put shredders on other maps. I don't know how they're going to implement that. Are they going to be building based? Are they going to be roaming the overworld? I don't know. But Stella Montes is actually, despite all of its stressfulness, a really fun map. It actually is a really fun map. Now there are choke points. There are points where it's like a death sentence to go down if you need to get to the other side of the building. And when you fight on this map, because of how many routes, how many flanking options, how many corridors that you actually have access to, is by far one of the most fun maps to actually fight on. And again, one of the most stressful maps for that very reason. Because when you're fighting like in a tight corridor, there will be 3 doorways that you can like duck into, and you can flank from those doorways, or you can run away from those doorways. There's places where you can climb up, you can jump down. There's places where you can open the door and there's 3 shredders behind the door, and you can use that as a way to distract your enemy or scare them off from fighting you, and you can still escape them by using like again line of sight. You can. If you have one door that's open, you close another, go through another, and they'll lose line of sight. They can't open doors, so you can just run through it that way. But there's a lot of great loot on this map, and that's exactly why most players will attack on sight if they see you. Do not trust people on this map. I'm sorry, even though you can communicate, there are diplomatic ways you can talk to people on this map, and a lot of times you can speak to them and they'll be fairly decent. But I will say 9 times out of 10, they are an enemy. Do not trust them. Do not talk to them. If you don't want to fight, run. That is your only option. Or if you need the goop, you will fight. You need to fight 2 for now. And then once you fight one person, this map isn't honestly all that big. It's 2 stories, so it's actually pretty big in that sense. But once you start firing that weapon of yours, once the first grenade that you throw, the moment it makes noise, most of the map knows where you are. Most people who are near you will know where you are. And that's just the reality of Stella Montes. It's by far the most aggressive map that you will ever see in this game. and it's oddly enough, it's one of the most fun maps in this game. Now I can't really explain it to you, but each of these maps have their own special events that happen on them, such as lightning storms. Those are mostly for open maps. Salamanca is the only truly enclosed map, the only the only map that is strictly indoors. But every other map has access to lightning storms. Lightning storms are only on the outdoor maps, which lightning strikes down around you. If they strike you, it does, of course, a lot of damage and it destroys your shield. So, I mean, if you can avoid it at all costs. I mean, I don't need to tell you don't get struck by lightning, but just be careful with that. And Arc generally don't spawn during these events because lightning, electricity, and the danger of lightning messes with their systems, and you'll just find less Arc in general on during lightning storm. So if you're just trying to like run around the map, and there are certain items that only spawn during lightning storm. So on dance specifically, there is a grappling hook that you can only get during a lightning storm. So it is good to look for them. It's good to go through them, especially if you just want to run through a map. You can't when during a lightning storm it makes so much noise outside due to rain and lightning. You're running, you're looting, and all that you're muffled. So most raiders couldn't really hear you too well because of all the surrounding noises happening at the same time. Night raids are in a similar vein, but be the opposite of that. Night raids happen on all maps, including Salamanca's. Well, I don't know why, but night raids happen on all maps, which Arc actually spawn more. They're more present on night raids, but there is much more valuable goop that can be found during night raids. So that's where you find all your blueprints, your weaponry. That's generally where you find most of the really good stuff is during these night raids. But it's also when it's the most threatening because most raiders know that that's where all the good goop is spawning. Most raiders know that's when most of the Arc is most active. So they will be more aggressive during this time as well. So where's this game headed out? Now the game, I am not really sure where it's headed. I can't really say for certain. I kind of get the premise, I get the story. They clearly have a story that they want to tell, and the game has an active event that's going to be happening pretty soon that is going to shed more light on its future. So I'm not really sure what it's going to be, and I'm not really sure what the plan is, where it's going to be headed. But I am looking forward to what they do going forward. That allows me to keep up the hunt for the goop and other players. So that being said, there are like other aspects of Arc Raiders that I do think is super interesting. For instance, like the weaponry, it's not your typical run of the mill like Call of Duty style. Like you're not going to get your AR-15s, you're not going to get your AKs. It's not anything like that. The weaponry that they have in the game is rudimentary. It feels like they put the guns together using scraps. And I mean, if you look at them, that's exactly what it is. The guns are unique in the aspect. For instance, the kettle is it looks like a nail gun. It looks exactly like a nail gun, where it has like that canister at the top that shoots air that shoots like the nail out. And you're shooting bullets out of this. Though the kettle is very much like that. Where you shoot is like almost like a marksman rifle. So the faster you shoot, the faster the bullets come out. There's another thing called a Stitcher. The Stitcher, it's one of my favorite guns in the game because I just like saying up the Stitch. Oh, do you want to fight me? I had the Stitcher. I'm gonna have the Stitcher. I give them a Stitcher. That's my catchphrase with the Stitcher. It's a sort of like a how do I say it? Not an Uzi. It's not like that, but it's similar in a sense where it shoots a lot of rounds. It has a high rate of fire, and it's actually fairly consistent. One of the best common weapons that you're going to start out with. The Rattler's piece of garbage only has 12 rounds. Is by far one of the worst It's by far one of the worst starter weapons that you can ever hold in your hands. If you have one, if you find any other weapon, use that over the Rattler. It's so bad. Even if it's upgraded, well, if it's upgraded, Rattler isn't terrible. But good lord, that's the worst weapon in the game, in my opinion. It's the Pharaoh, which is like a marksman rifle. It shoots one round and have to reload. It's okay. My favorite gun by far, there's no contest, is a Torrente. There's a couple other weapons. I don't know what the naming style is supposed to be, but it's the Il Toro. It's like a shotgun. The Torrente is basically a light machine gun. A ton of bullets, very quickly. And it has like one of the highest ammo capacities in the game. It's my favorite weapon, not only because I mean it's a light machine gun. You turn a corner and there's like a tight quarter and there's like three people right there, they're dead. I'm nah, you're not escaping that. Especially you have like certain like attachments you can put onto the guns. Like you can create your own weapon in a way that you like. So for instance, there's a rare attachment called a kinetic converter, which essentially just makes it shoot faster and hits harder. So with that on the Torrente, oh my god, you are a bullet hose. It's by far the most fun weapon in the game to me. There's like a long range weapons called an Osprey. The Osprey is the only weapon in the game that currently has a kind of scope that you literally can look into the scope and look into. Most weapons, since the game is in third person, you're looking over your shoulder. You're not really looking down a line of sight. So the Osprey is the only one that does that. And there's a couple other weapons, uh, like the I don't know. I'm forgetting the Tempest. The Tempest is an assault rifle. It's very consistent, very good. See, there's the I almost said Wolverine. Whoa, what is it called? I'm blanking on this all of a sudden. Well, it no. What is it? Wolf? No, that's Wolf Pack. That's a grenade. What is this thing called? I can't remember. Hmm. It'll come to me later. It's probably going to come to me the moment I close this out. But essentially, this game is super fun. I highly recommend it. It's actually, in terms of modern games that have been coming out lately, it's on the cheaper side. It is $40. And it has gone on sale before, which I got it on, which was like, what, $30? But essentially, this game is super fun. If you're into extraction shooters, I say at least try it out. It's and if you manage to get like a team together, I say yeah, it's a really fun game. I highly recommend it. I still play it to this day. And going forward, if you start playing the game, there is cross play, so it may run into you. I will not promise your safety. In fact, if you cross my path, be ready to fight. Lay you out. But essentially, thank y'all for listening. That's all I want to say today. I wish y'all a good day. Go hug your dog, talk to your cat, and go read a book. And I'll talk to you later. Deuces.